It's something which moves and changes with time. I feel a lot of identification with something I once read in an interview with Albert Camus, that he said that he felt very privileged to have met 5 or 6 great people in his lifetime. I think that meeting some people who are great raises the heavens a little bit more. It gives you more of a sense of where one can arrive at or strive towards, together with the greater sense of frustration of where one's not. So there's been various people who've influenced me, and of course one doesn't immediately think of one's parents, and most people don't, maybe because it's for granted, it's what you grow up, the soil you grow up upon. Some of the people who influenced me would be Rabbanim I met, such as, it's hard not to think of originally Rav Freiman. Rav Freiman was closest to a household yogi that one could have in the Jewish world. He was teaching in various places, though teaching would be the wrong word, because his job was to sit in the hall of study and answer questions. He'd do it a little bit in one place, a little bit in another place. People usually thought he was the janitor, but I think what he had going for him was an insatiable, often even an annoying curiosity. He would find it very hard to see someone with a book without wanting to know what was going on in that book, and he'd ask often very innocent questions, which possibly only a long time afterwards you'd realize that he was actually driving somewhere, but I'd have strong doubts if he himself was even aware of driving in any specific direction.
Are you sort of defining his curiosity, his ability to be influenced, to be touched, to be affected by people is actually...
I think so. In other words, it's bothered me for some time, the picture which is the orthodox picture of Avraham Avinu, apropos the text you told me to read first, that he's always described as someone who's really out there doing outreach, bring people in, which is a very obnoxiously patronizing picture of someone who feels, I have the truth and I'm going to spread it.
Have you heard about Hashem today?
Yes. I remember someone who was one of the people who actually influenced myself, my thinking far more than many of the rabbis, a certain person called Yakar Fogelman, who used to go around various places and annoying people in various ways, a sort of type of Socrates character.
Thank you very much.
And he said in the name of Soloveitchik, what does it mean, Avram being the midah of chesed? It's not kindness, it's sociability. Avram loved people. So when he's sitting at the entrance of his tent 3 days after his operation, he sees 3 strangers, he just runs because he's thirsty for company. Yeah. With certain problematics in that, which Fogelman liked pointing out, that it's Rabbi Shimon Yochai, who probably was quite an antisocial person himself, and therefore suspected Avram's sociability, who says that Avram's feast celebrating his son's circumcision was actually he only invited the important people. Implying Abraham, there were people he preferred and people he preferred less to hang out with. But I think that's a beautiful picture of someone who really finds people interesting. I mean, there's nothing more generous than finding someone interesting. You can't be feigned, you can't be fake, but some people are more open to finding different things interesting. Some people will only be interested in people who are interested in their specific field, and some people find interest in people of various fields, and I think that's the most beautiful type of chesed, because you're really connecting to someone because you're in it for your own gain. You really want to find out.
I couldn't agree with you more. You mentioned Socrates, and Socrates is known as a midwife, sort of helping bring other people to their own knowledge. But he described himself as a midwife, but also as being possessed by a daimonion, sort of being moved by something within him, sort of perhaps being drawn into subjects or people, a sense of chesed, and not in the sense of, to do good, but just being drawn into situations.
It seems that those around him suspected him of having an agenda.
Yes. Which is the case from the outside, but it might be, maybe he did, but it was
maybe both.
In some part unbeknownst to himself.
And maybe both. Maybe sometimes he really found someone interesting, and sometimes he found someone so irksome he had to prove this guy didn't know what he was talking about. We all have a kinder and less kind moments.
So Rav Fogelman, you've mentioned Rav Soloveitchik as well.
I think Fogelman, if I already mentioned him, is not one of the people I've necessarily first thought about. He was there going to various classes and asking irksome questions, and I was extraordinarily extreme in my practice at the time, and very diligent on my time, to the extent that invitations to go to this or that Hasidic Rebbe's wedding I turned down because it was a waste of time. But somehow Fogman had this ability of raising interesting questions in the right way, introducing me to other things. He didn't think he wasn't going around in the sense of I have a truth to impart. There was something very playful about him. And I think that facilitated me opening and knowing new worlds, which touched me in various ways.
Talmud Torah is not me'ever text, but perhaps it's sort of you encountering other worlds is what actually maybe enables you to appreciate what's in the text in a much more.
For me, that's what works. In other words, when many years ago the head of the academy where I was studying, Rav Hadari, said to me that someone who's in Torah, everything is Torah, and mentioned Rav Kook's an example, I sort of gave him a look of like that, meaning, okay, we both know I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
But I think for me, it's not a question of feeling, this is Torah, this is not Torah, but finding that anything which interests me will obviously inseminate and inspire and inform my reading of other Torah texts. I mean, Torah is the language I speak better than other languages. That's why I enjoy playing with it. But it's like a mamalesh, it's like a mother tongue. And just as it's a riddle for people who are in the field of neurological psychology and research of languages, it's a type of riddle. Why is it that there's basically everybody has an ability to learn a mother tongue? But some people have ability to learn other languages, and some people seem not to have that ability. Some people know 5, 6, 10 languages, some people have difficulty learning one other language. And it's a whole field of research, but I think for me, Torah is like my mother tongue in many ways, from a scholar, from a study point of view. And other languages, I feel often I don't really manage to learn to speak them as fluently as I may like to, but I do feel that they inform my own language. Well, some people, first of all, I guess as kids or as teenagers, I'm good at this, so let's continue doing this.
Right.
But it's also, for me, Torah was something which I felt a certain intimacy with. Like, for example, Talmud, Gemara, I didn't always find it the most interesting text, but I usually find it something which has a certain intimacy to it. Bet Yakar was a book which almost from the first time I opened it, I just found I had a conversation with him. It's almost, I wouldn't say almost everywhere I'd opened it, I'd find, it's like a friend who, whether they're talking about something more interesting or less interesting, you'll find them interesting, inspiring. What they eat for breakfast is interesting too. If Avraham Avinu was someone who was genuinely interested in people, and he had this thing going on which is this God stuff, and you think, this is someone who's interesting, and they find me interesting, and what's this God he's talking about? And many people probably find that interesting. And some people wouldn't. The Talmud tells a story, the Midrash tells a story about his hosting this old man who was an idolater. And afterwards Abraham said to him, we'll fed you, given you to drink, say thank you to God. He said, I'll say thank you to you. He says, no, don't say thank you to me, say thank you to God. The guy says, I don't know God. Yes, I'm saying thank you to you. Abraham got annoyed and threw him out. And at night God came to Abraham in the dream and says, I've suffered this guy for 100 years. You couldn't suffer him for one night. And I think also what's going on was, this is Abraham going too far. No, you've got to love my God. I don't know your God. And Abraham possibly has his discomfort in being appreciated himself for himself. He preferred to see himself, I'm just representing God, it's not me, I'm giving out God's food. So I don't know God, but you're being nice and I want to say thank you to you personally. And the process of Abraham learning, it's his own voice, it's God in him rather than representing something external. He's representing God, but he doesn't have to say a word about God, he can do the cooking, and it's quite good enough. So,
apropos of the food. So God has a sense of humor in your eyes.
Yes.
God definitely has a sense of humor, at least in your rendition of, says, you can only suffer from, I've been living with this guy for...
I think the idea of God without a sense of humor is tyrannical, is awful. I mean, I don't always appreciate his sense of humor, but sometimes he has a good joke on us.
But you can imagine, quote unquote, a more healthy Avraham that would have sort of enjoyed someone else enjoying his hospitality.
Which I think is what this story is telling. It was a process for him.
Which is maybe a more organic way of
and he becomes less theological as time goes on. The last story of Abraham has him marrying a few new wives and having more kids. He's not proving anything.
Which isn't usually how we end with it. Most people cut the story at the Akedah, but he has this like second act to his life with many children and wives.
And I think the Torah is describing Abraham not as becoming more saintly in the Western type of terms until he ends up on the cross, so much as or Jacob, whose end of life was sort of sad and surrounded by his family. Abraham goes off now, let's have a new family, let's have small kids at the age of 150 is not too young, too old to start again.
It's quite a revolutionary picture of Abraham.
It's written in the Bible.
But it gives me sort of the picture of an Abraham that would just enjoys kibitzing with people, enjoys sort of sharing, sort of just in the exploration of potential destinies. Sort of.
I think so.
But who knows? Who knows himself and his God nonetheless very deeply.
I think Avraham often comes across as God's friend. Isaiah calls God Avraham or Aviv, Abraham my beloved. So if one thinks more of Abraham as a friend than maybe of Isaac or Jacob. He sounds like a friendly person.
Yeah.
And what's a friend more than someone who is fun to be with?
Again, I'm enjoying this sort of like
maybe that is the most godly thing.
For people to enjoy you, and if they're enjoying you, and come to enjoy Hashem, or the process of
you're putting God into the picture. Come to he's the means. I'm thinking meeting Abraham, and according to many midrashim, is meeting God, but not meeting God as there is Abraham and there is God.
Right.
Meeting Abraham is a godly experience.
Exactly.
There's a sentence by Allen Ginsberg who says, "I'd like people who meet me to say there is a man who has met God." Moshe Klebanov told me he used to live here.
I remember Moshe Klebanov very well. Yes.
You can't not remember him.
Yes.
Said he once asked Ginsberg, "Doesn't that sound a little bit prideful?" And Ginsberg said, "I think Ginsberg isn't necessarily I've met God, but I want people." And
at least may possibly feel that.
If he's not saying it in the mode of I want people to admire me, maybe he says I want to be the type of person, even if I don't know the experience myself, something is happening through me. Like William Carlos Williams says that he thinks that belief or faith is something which one probably can't experience and know what one is experiencing at the same time. So maybe what Ginsberg is saying is, I don't know if I've met God or not, I don't know if I can even say there has been this moment. But if people meet something through me, in me, and you seem to be a fun person too, so that is a godly experience.
Very interesting. On Shabbat, a very interesting person, Eli Schoenfeld, gave a class on Noach and described Noach as having a sod that he couldn't quite sort of articulate himself. That a Chacham has the ability to reveal both to reveal and conceal. He has the wisdom to know what you can't say in all situations, within all types of company.
And I assume he didn't tell you what the sword was.
Exactly. Because, as you said, the quote from William Carlos Williams, I think, tells us something, that a person can't actually be necessarily engaged in something and articulate it the same way, because it's in a sense happening to them. It's happening through them, as you were speaking. To define it, even though we're still trying to come close to it, is almost at cross purposes sometimes. That may be saying too much.
Rabbi Levin would say that a secret is something that even when it's told, it remains a secret, and I think that complements what you're saying.
Rabbanim said the same thing. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
In a way, one can never have a secret. Having a secret implies there's something one has and knows one has this.
Right, but you can perhaps be in possession of a secret. It can be possessing you in a certain sense.
So were you talking about secret?
Secrets, yeah.
Yes, I recall when I was first dating, my early 20s.
You're very welcome.
One of the various criteria I was seeking was someone who I felt had a secret. And I remember the disappointment meeting someone and feeling that, and realizing the difference between being secretive or having secretiveness but not having a secret. The Bet Yaakov says that everyone has a secret with God which makes them unique. I personally like the Lacanian picture of the unconscious, which is that the unconscious is something which can never be known. This only appears in dialogue and psychotherapeutic dialogue. It's not something that is there. There is no thing, no depository of secrets, no depository of anything. It's more a mode rather than
a tehum. Could one say rather more than a depth?
Yeah, tehum.
I asked you to take a look at this particular Beit Yaakov because I think he touches on, with my limited knowledge, some of the issues that we've actually already sort of entered into. Sort of the notion of recognition, sort of hashpa, of awareness of influence is, it seems to be critical importance of the Beit Yaakov.
What do you mean critical importance?
He defines the difference between Israel and the sort of the default state of the world is being dependent upon whether or not they can perceive that they're being influenced, in this case by Hashem. At least from my reading of the text.
And possibly also the element of it being an ongoing revelation rather than something given.
Exactly.
That connects with my mind to something of being in dialogue with something or someone, which means that you always feel there's more to discover, more secrets to discover, more in the text. One of the most beautiful poems is what one says when you finish learning a tractate, which is, we will return to you and you will return to us. We won't forget you, the text, we won't forget us. In this world and next world, meaning we know there's more to be discovered. So I think possibly that's what he's saying here, is that the essence of being non-Israel is this feeling I've received and I know, and there's something which is, it's just given, but there's no constant connection with the giver all the time. And there's so many texts which describe that learning Torah means there's God with you, there's God in dialogue with you, there's Shekhinah presence there.